So I've been doing this home hemodialysis thing for a minute now, and I will say that as much as I hate dialysis, as much as I hate it, it is considerably better than going to an in-center. You know, where you're in a cold building, you're in an uncomfortable chair, and you are more or less surrounded by a lot of people who really don't care what happens to you. You know, now that I've done this for a while now, for, some months, couple months, I could never see myself going back to in-center. Like, unless it is something that is completely out of my control, I could never see myself voluntarily going back to in-center, and going back to that. A lot of the reason why, for those of you who don't remember, because it's been a while since I've made a video, for a lot of you who don't remember, I had to do home hemodialysis because I was suffering from something called orthostatic hypotension, right? Meaning that my blood pressure will drop significantly after a dialysis treatment when I stand up. Now, it doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but in reality, it is. With orthostatic hypotension, your blood pressure drops considerably when you stand, and in some cases, that can lead to you passing out. And if you pass out, you can fall on the ground, you can hit your head on the ground, you can cause yourself serious injury, especially if you're alone. Like, you can get seriously injured. You could potentially die from that. So, as a result of that, I needed to switch the method in which I did dialysis, which led me to home hemodialysis. And I will say that it is gentler than in-center because the machines in in-center are much more powerful. They're bigger machines. They pull a lot more aggressively than the smaller machines do at the one at your home. And the ones that you train on for home hemodialysis. They're gentler, but you still feel bad afterwards. Like, you still don't feel great afterwards, right? Like, there's this, for those of you who've never done it and haven't experienced it, it's not like they just hook you up to a battery and then you're just good, you're just good. Like, there's a lot of physical restrictions that come along with being on dialysis, right? And after a treatment, like, you are not going to be able to go 10 rounds with the champ. Like, you're wiped out. Even at the home hemodialysis, like, even though they're gentler machines, like, I still feel the effects of the dialysis. Like, after a treatment, I really don't feel like doing much because I don't have the energy to do a lot. Right? And for those of you who aren't familiar, right, like, they tell you in these brochures about how there's so much freedom and blah, 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 and all this stuff, and you're sitting around, you're waiting for, like, that magical moment where this just becomes this great experience. And for me, just speaking strictly for myself, it hasn't been. Like, that change has not happened. Like, for me, this has been a terrible experience from day one. Like, and this would probably be a part of the video where I talk about how, I'm trying to find, I found the miracle. Every tragedy has a miracle. And no, like, sometimes tragic events are just tragic events. There's no greater will. There's no greater meaning. Bad stuff happens to people because bad stuff happens to people. That's just my personal belief, right? Like, I wasn't chosen. God didn't choose me for this. This wasn't my destiny. And, there was no lesson to be learned from this. This is just a terrible thing that happened to me, and that's just it, And I find that, and this is just me being completely open, the longer I'm on dialysis, like, the angrier I get about it, of just the unfairness. And I am in my physical prime right now. Like, I'm in my late 30s. I'm in my physical prime right now, and I'm just sitting around like some schmuck, literally watching my prime years just waste away because I just physically, I'm not as able as I was before, And next month will be May. And May will mark 2 years that I've been on dialysis. Now, before anybody congratulates me, hold up. Let me explain. None of this, and I apologize for, I'm outside, so I apologize if things keep getting dark and lighting up and getting dark. I apologize for that. But none of this is anything that I'm proud of. Any achievement or accomplishment, and I do that in air quotations because these aren't achievements for me. These aren't accomplishments for me. I am not proud of any of this. And I am at a point with this where I am sick of, one, trying to be positive, and two, other people telling me to be positive about this. I just want it to be over. I just want the suffering to stop. Either I die from this or I get a kidney. Either way, I just want it to end. So that way I can just move forward with something instead of just waiting around. My life is literally on hold because of this. Not that I'm saying that I was going to do some grandiose thing and change the world or whatever. No. I just wanted to do karate. I just wanted to do my martial arts and go for walks and just live my life like a normal person without having any physical restrictions on me. And I don't think that's a lot to ask. I'm not out here, trying to get over on people. I'm not out here trying to do nefarious things to get ahead or step on people or ruin people's lives. I just want to live a normal life and just be happy without any restrictions, which is what I was doing before I got sick. For me, there's no lessons to be had from this. I was so appreciative of my life before this happened. I finally got to a place emotionally and mentally where I was happy. And then this happened, and then my whole world got flipped upside down and my life as I knew it was over. And people will try to argue with you and tell you, well, your life's not over because you're here right now. You're here right now living, man. You're here right now. It's not over. And it's bro, shut up. Just shut the hell up with that bullshit. Okay? Most people say that because it's not them that's going through this. It's different when it's you. And anybody that's being honest will tell you that. Right? You guys just see this part of it. Right? Me talking into this camera and you guys see what I show you, but you don't see, you didn't see all of the suffering that went along with this before I got to this point and all the suffering that is going on now. Right? That's the stuff that you don't see, and then dialysis takes up an absorbent amount of your time. So an in-center, because I'm at the clinic right now. So an in-center, you go 3 days a week, right? And you assume none of the responsibility. All you really got to do is just show up. But for a home hemodialysis patient, I do dialysis 5 days a week, meaning I get 2 days off just to do nothing. But even then, I still have to do things in relation to the machine and dialysis. I still have to prep for the next day when I have to do dialysis again, and the little brochures that you get in the clinic keep telling you about all this freedom that you're going to have and all this living that you can do. Well, and how can I put this? You try to do what you can in the few amount of hours that you get in between each dialysis session. Really, your entire life revolves around this one activity, right? So I'm on for 3 hours and 15. It would have been cooler if it was 3:16, so I could hit people with stone cold stunners. But I'm on for 3:15, right? So 3 hours and 15 minutes is dedicated to me doing dialysis, plus 26 minutes for the machine to prime for me to get ready to do dialysis, right? Plus however long it takes for me after the treatment for me to take the machine down, clean the machine off, patch myself up, gather all the supplies. This is after. Gather all the supplies, then take the needles out, then wait to stop bleeding, which could take anywhere from 5 minutes to 20, you know. And then right there, that's like 4.5 hours, sometimes longer, depending on when you stop bleeding or how long it takes, you know. And on top of that, not every dialysis treatment goes smoothly. That's one thing that, like, they don't tell you in those brochures or on those ads that you see on YouTube talking about how great, you know, home hemodialysis is. Like, when things go wrong with the machine, I have to take care of that, right? Like, I can call somebody, but really it's on me. Like, I'm the one there. You know, I live an hour away from my dialysis center. So they can't just come down and just check it out. You know, if I'm doing my treatment at, you know, if I'm on the machine at like 10 o'clock at night, my nurse is not going to come down to help me with the machine. I have to figure that out. So when the machine stops or there's clotting issues or something is going on with the machine, I have to take care of that. I have to troubleshoot to find out what the problem is in order to correct it. So that way I can continue my treatment. Right? On top of everything else I have to do. So I'm literally like my own technician. I'm my own nurse. You know, I'm my own maintenance person. Like, if something goes wrong, I can call a 24-hour call center, right? But, like, I still have to follow the steps. And I still have to make it work. And a lot of times, I don't really call my nurse or the technical hotline. I just figure it out. You know, I have like these two like giant books for the dialyzer, the dialysis machine, you know, and when something goes wrong, I have to flip through those books to find out what's going on. Like, I have to troubleshoot, right? So all of the responsibility for the most part is on me as far as like the treatment goes itself. Plus, I have to stick myself 5 days a week. I have to stick myself twice 5 days a week, right? And eventually that adds up. So all of this I'm doing, I have all this responsibility 5 days a week. It's literally like a full-time job for me to do this. Plus my 2 days off of if I have to prepare, like I said before, for the next day. So, you know, it's not, to me, and this is just me speaking strictly from my perspective here. Like, this is not an adventure for me. This is not fun. You know, like, this is not something that I look upon fondly. Like, I hate this. Like, with every fiber of my being, I hate this. You know, and there's nothing I can really do except wait. You know, all I can do is just wait. Just wait for somebody to make a decision and hope that I can stay healthy long enough to not get kicked off the list. Right? So there's nothing that anybody can do to get you a kidney faster, right? They tell you that stuff, but that's all bullshit, right? But what you can do is try to stay on the list. That's like the only thing that you really have control over, you know, for a modicum amount of control over, right? Because if you're on the list, at least if something happens sooner, then, you know, they could at least call you. But if you're not on the list, you're like missing opportunities. You know, like for me, for example, I got myself put on the kidney transplant list. Like, nobody who was supposed to be able to help me with that process did. Not the nephrologist that I had at the time, not these nurses, no one. No one was giving me the information that I needed in order to get me put on the list. I had to figure it out. Like, They gave me an outline of what I was supposed to do only after I got angry about it, right? But until then, they were just content with just me sitting around like some idiot, just being on dialysis like it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. You know? And it's like, the whole point of me personally, the whole point of me doing dialysis is so that way I can get off of dialysis. Like, I want to get off this so badly. You people don't understand. Like, I just want this to just be done. I want to get off dialysis so badly and just at least live a little bit before I die. You know? And for me, it's important for me to get off dialysis as fast as possible because, like, as I've stated, I am in my prime right now, right? And if the faster I can get off dialysis, the easier it will be for me to get back into shape. Like martial arts shape, work shape for me to go back into the workforce. It'll be easier for me to get back into shape because I'll have youth on my side and I'll bounce back just like that. But if I'm just wasting away on a transplant list, the longer you're on dialysis, the more your health will decline, right? All dialysis really does, it's not a miracle. It's not like a miracle treatment, and it's not a cure. All it is just slowing down the degradation of you. That's all it is. That's all it does. It's just a bridge to get you from the time you got sick to a kidney. Unfortunately, that process takes years and years and years. And unfortunately, some people do die on it. And some people do find themselves in worse condition, which leads to them getting kicked off the list. Then you have to requalify. Now, the benefit to that is you don't have to start over. You still accumulate time. You're just not active, right? So if you're not active, that means that you're not eligible to get a kidney, right? If you're inactive, you're on the list accumulating time, but they can't touch you, your co-product. But for me, like, I desperately want to get off. Dialysis. So that way I can live again. Like, this is not living, what I'm doing right now. I'm alive, but this is not living. Like, I'm not living. Like, this is just surviving. Surviving isn't living, right? Like, I want to live, like, a good life. In my opinion, for me, despite all of the things that I do, all of the hobbies that I have, all of the things that I enjoy, I am not living to my fullest potential, to what makes me happy, And admittedly, when I got sick, like at the very beginning, the HLH, and then the kidney disease, like something inside me died, and no matter what these transplant coordinators or these nurses or these technicians in these dialysis centers or these doctors keep trying to tell me, that part of myself will never return. It's like I keep trying to find things to fill that void, and like nothing is enough to fill that void I lost when all of this happened. And to put into perspective that I'm not just some negative Nancy, and it's just like, man, this guy he's just miserable. He wants to be miserable. And this guy he doesn't want to look on the bright side and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So about 4 years ago, I got sick with an autoimmune disease called HLH, right? So I had to do like months and months and months of chemo, right? Okay. So like the last day of chemo, I'm looking at that calendar. I'm looking at my chemotherapy schedule calendar, and I'm thinking, if I could just get through this, everything's gonna be fine. I'm gonna get through this, and I'm going to go right back to living my life, and everything's going to be great, and I'm going to get back on that horse, and I'm just going to do all this great stuff, and everything's going to be great, and just positive, 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 and happy, 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 and all this other bullshit. And just like a couple months later, my kidney doctor told me that my kidneys were failing. And when she told me that moment right there is when all my hope died. She told me that your kidneys are failing rapidly, and you need to start thinking about options for dialysis. And that's when my hope died. That day those words came out of her mouth was the day I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this gumdrops and rainbows bullshit. I'm over it. I'm just over it. Now, I just do it. Don't expect me to be happy about it. I'm doing the shit, ain't I? I'm just doing it. And then after she told me that my kidneys were failing, I got really sick. And then I ended up in the hospital. And, they had to put in an emergency catheter. And I went under a normal person, right? And then I woke up with this plastic tube sticking out of my stomach. And then I was crushed. Like, I can't even tell you the despair that I felt, and the disappointment, and the anger, and the sadness, and just like all of these emotions all at once, looking at this plastic tube in my stomach. And I talked to these doctors, and I talked to these nurses, and then when I tell them that I'm not proud of any of this, and this is bullshit, they look at me puzzled, like they can't understand like why I don't fall in love with this stuff. Like why I'm not positive, why I'm not, hoping for the best and seeing the cloud, seeing, a silver lining in every cloud, man. And like I said before, sometimes bad things just happen and there's no reason for it. Not everything that happens has a reason. Sometimes things just happen because that's just how it is. And for me, that's what I believe. This is just a tragic thing that happened because tragic things happen to people. It's just what happens. And it's unfortunate that it had to be me. It's unfortunate that it has to be anybody. That has to go through this. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not right. And anybody going through this has every right to be angry. They have every right to be sad. Nobody has the right to tell you how you should feel. Especially during this. Especially if they are not the ones going through this. Especially if they have no point of reference to understand where you're coming from. If they're out there living their best lives, healthy, social life, doing social activities, no restrictions on them, feeling good, out here exercising, looking good, feeling good, they have no right to tell you anything. Not a single thing about how you should feel about this. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do not feel good about this. I just don't. And no matter how much time passes, and no matter what anybody says, it just doesn't, I just don't feel good about it. But what else can I do? There's nothing else I can do. They try to, the people in this field of expertise try to tell you that you have all this opportunity, and that you have all this freedom, and that you have all of this and you have all of that, and that's not necessarily true. It's just not reality. You know, they tell you that to make you feel better about yourself, but that's not real. You know, like, you have all of this freedom to do whatever you want, but you don't have the energy to do it. You know? And then their explanation, or not their explanation, but they we'll just, you know, they just tell you, well, just go out and just do it. Just go out and just do it. Like, bro, I don't have energy. Like, you're not listening to what I'm saying to you. And another thing about home hemodialysis, they try to rationalize that you'll have a lot more energy. Dude, you really don't have that much more energy than doing in-center. And you're doing it more often. So you really don't have that much more energy than you did doing it in-center. So you're basically just, to me, it's like I just traded one prison for another. And that's exactly what dialysis feels like. It feels like you're trapped in this prison that you can't escape. You know, but everyone keeps telling you that this prison that you are trapped in is a luxury resort. But it's not. And you can feel yourself gradually, like, degrading the longer you're on it. Like, I feel myself getting weaker and weaker. You know? And everyone just tells you, hey, just shut up and just smile like some mark and just be happy that you're alive. And it's like, just being alive is not enough. Right? Like, there's got to be more to it than just being alive. Like, being alive is not enough for me. I want to live. I want to thrive. I want to be happy. These are all things that go along with being alive. Like, human beings need these things to feel fulfilled. And right now, I do not feel fulfilled in my life. Because everything that you do is just a constant reminder of the things that you can't do. You go out and get a job, well, you know, and you're looking at all this work that you got to do, and you're just like, man, if I was healthy, this would be no problem. You know, you try to go out and to social events with people, you know, and there's all these food restrictions that you have to adhere to, and you're just like, man, I would have such a better time if I was healthy. You know, you try to go on dates and you try to meet, you know, try to go on dates, you try to meet people, you know, you try to get a little romance going, significant other maybe, and now you have to explain to them this, and then they look at you like you're damaged goods. And then they don't want to be bothered. Right? Because they don't want to take care of a sick person. Right? So everything, no matter what, no matter how much freedom, like a nephrologist will tell you that you have, there are so many restrictions that are put on you once you develop end-stage renal disease, end-stage renal failure, or kidney disease. Right? Like, things aren't the same. And people will try to tell you that it is, but it's not. And if you're being honest with yourself, you're being real with yourself, you know that it's not the same. Activities aren't as fun. Like, for me, for example, like, activities aren't as fun as they used to be, because I know that I have to stop having fun so that way I can go put myself on the machine. If I'm somewhere and I'm having a good time, well, I got to go home because I have to do these treatments. You know, if I'm on a date, well, you know, I got to cut my date short because I have to go do a treatment. You know, if I go on vacation, if I go camping, I either have to find a dialysis center in order to do dialysis, or I have to drag this giant freaking machine with me to where I'm going. Then do dialysis there, and then still suffer from the same effects of exhaustion. which completely impedes my ability to have a good time, right? You can't drink a lot of fluids. There's foods you can't eat. It's just, it's a mess. You know, it's just a mess. Like all of this is just a mess. And you can be the happiest person in the world. You can try to find all of the best, whatever it is. You can try to look deep down into this shit and try to find that one nugget of goodness, but it still doesn't change the fact that like all of these things are still happening and all of this stuff is still piling up, and you still have to do all of these things, which hinder your ability. And nobody, I don't care how happy you are, can withstand that kind of punishment for years and years. For years and years I'm gonna have to do this, right? Like, and nobody can give me any real answers to anything, right? They don't know if I'm gonna be on, like, I have one person telling me 3 years, I have, you know, one person telling me 5 to 7, I have one person telling me 7 to 10. I don't know. But yet you're supposed to smile like some schmuck through all of this uncertainty. And you're supposed to trust the process, and all you see during the process is people, like, all you're seeing during the process is medical professionals who are supposed to know stuff not telling you anything. But you're supposed to trust the process. So you don't really know what to do. The only thing you really know is that, like, man, you just want some relief. You just want, like, a week off. But if you take a week off, man, like, a person can survive maybe 2 weeks without dialysis, without dying. You know, 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks is probably maximum somebody can survive without dialysis if they're in end-stage renal failure before you die. You know, and it's just like everything with dialysis is just like this. You're on the razor's edge of like this life or death, you know, and like folks on the outside try to make it seem like this is just some casual thing. Like it's like waiting at a queue, like being on the transplant list is like waiting in a queue at McDonald's to get a Big Mac, or doing dialysis is just easy as pie. It's just simple as pie. You know, it's not. Like, you're on the razor's edge of, like, life or death, man. If I make a mistake and air gets into that machine, I could die from that. You know, like, I have to be cognitive and pay attention to every single thing I'm doing when working with the machine. You know, and then the uncertainty of me just, like, waiting on a transplant list, and you're calling these coordinators, and they're not getting back to you. Right? And if something happens at the transplant center, they're not going to tell you that. One time, the transplant center in UC Davis just shut down for 2 months, didn't tell anybody. And I'm calling, and nobody's calling me back. You know, until eventually one of my surgeons called UC Davis, and then they gave me the information about what was going on because they didn't want to talk to me. You know, just uncertainty. And I think that's, if they could just give patients some information about, like, just a ballpark of when they can expect to receive anything, that right there would ease the minds of so many people of, like, you know what, listen, we can't tell you the exact day when you can expect to receive a kidney, but in the ballpark of around February 2024. Around there. Or maybe not even the month. Just, you know, maybe 2024. That's when you can expect to receive a kidney. You know, just anything. Any indication instead of just leaving patients in the dark. And you'll have some patients that are 100% okay with that. Well, you know, I've just got to stay positive and just trust the process. And it's like, that's not getting you any closer to a kidney. And all you're doing is just lying to yourself. And I told myself I would never do that again. I was never going to lie to myself about my odds or my chances. About anything. You know? meeting somebody new, making new friends, being on the kidney transplant list. You know, maybe it would be easier for me if I did live in La La Land, you know, where gumdrops and rainbows and everything worked out exactly the way it's supposed to. But I don't. I can't lie to myself like that. So all I can do is just make videos talking about how much this sucks, you know, and occasionally, you know, saying something educational. That's all I can really do, because I can't do nothing else. I can't expedite this process any faster. You know, and all of the things that they keep telling me that are an advantage for me, you know, me being relatively young, you know, me being, and they tell me all the time, transplant center, nurses, my kidney doctor, they tell me all the time, you're a perfect candidate, you're a perfect candidate. But I'm still sitting here waiting.